food, you can get a drink, and then we sit down and we have a panel discussion with the three men. I'll moderate it. And really, the conversation is framed around those elements of well-being we talked about, the things we know that people will talk about, their job, their money, their tribe, and their health. So that's the conversation we're aiming to host. It's right down the street at the Inverness Hilton, May 16th, Thursday evening. I forget the time. It's 5:30 to 8. The networking event is 5:30 to 6:30, and then we'll have a conversation from 6:30 to 8. We want this event to be a success, and hopefully it's a tee up for us doing many of these throughout the city and then nationally, which is what ultimately the goal is. I guess questions you might have of me. I've talked a lot here. I appreciate you listening. Does anybody have any questions kind of about the work we're doing? You don't have to be shy.
You're such a good orator that none.
I go fast. I do this a lot. So that's really all I've got. I appreciate you taking the time to listen. Thanks for coming out here tonight, and I hope to see you all at the Man Map. I would love for you to come, invite your friends, share, let people know. Tickets are on sale, and
before Jason leaves, guys, everybody has ideas, but Les Brown says the richest place in the whole world is the graveyard, because all those ideas go to the grave. You know, the poetry, the music, the business venture, the whatever. So all I would ask, I get to kind of play bad cop tonight, is if this resonates with you, or you think there's somebody on the planet you know that this might resonate with, let's go execute. You know, nothing would make Jason, myself, or I think our community in the Denver metro area happier than to get 300 concerned citizens in a room at one time talking about men's mental health. I mean, the state level with Denver Health, at the federal level, they're constantly asking these questions. Well, how do we get to the men? And Jason and I are like, go to where the men are. Yeah, but how do we talk to them? We'll speak in their language, right? So it's so hard, and I'm guilty. I'm sure we all are. How often do you go to your general physician? Like, never, you know, when I can't walk or the blood is all over that wall. So if that's how often you go to your general physician, when do you voluntarily sign up to go see the psychiatrist, the psychotherapist, the counselor, never. Like, never.
You get put in jail.
Okay,
there's that.
Yeah.
Which Psychology 101, running towards pleasure happens way less frequently than running away from pain. So if you guys would, you know, grab the bull by the horns and just do whatever you can to help us put butts in chairs, we'd certainly appreciate it. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, so just to add to that, you know, for some context, how we settled on men as a tribe to start with is, you know, statistically, us in this room are among the highest suicide rate in the nation. Our category of men are the highest suicide rate in the nation. And that's staggering. And we live in a world today, frankly, men get a bad rap. And I think we all can agree, not all men are bad. So from my perspective, this was an opportunity to really start crafting a different narrative and sharing a story around people that want to come together for a common goal and cause. That's the importance of doing this. You know, again, not to bash anybody or to say you suck or your story's not good or any of that. It's to come together for a common cause, and really to realize we're A, not alone, and B, there's something to recognize or resonate with in really anybody's story. So if you look at the three men, I don't know what you know about Zach's story, it's very compelling. Having done the podcast and gotten that kind of listenership, I've gotten a ton of feedback back about it. The things that resonated about it with people that they shared with me were not things that it resonated with me about, so I thought that was really awesome. Trent, the second gentleman there, we launched his week before last. In a psychotic episode, he shot his wife. And went through the whole legal process and all of that. They're still married. I'm interviewing her on Friday, so that story's coming. And then Jason Vitello, he's a licensed social worker. He works with Denver Public Health. He's an adjunct professor at DU, but one of the smartest guys I've ever sat down and talked to. Not to dismiss you, but I mean the guy's a genius.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like really just unpacks the fact that our group as a society, we're in crisis. And what I want to help us avert is to realize there are resources and there are places to get plugged in so we don't have to be in crisis. Like, you don't have to get depressed or anxious or addicted. Like, there are places to get help, and there are other people that have been exactly where you've been, and they're further down the path, and you can get aligned with them. That's the work that I aim to do. So, you know, maybe that's my Mother Teresa goal here, but I do think there's an opportunity for us really what it starts with is ambassadors like you guys to help spread the message. Yes, sir.
You know, I'm not a part of organizing the event. I'm absolutely going to be there.
And 20 of your closest friends,
And 50 of my closest friends.
Thank you.
374 of my closest friends.
I love it.
I think it's important because, you know, in terms of our narrative, our collective narrative as men, I think it doesn't get heard. One of the reasons I think it doesn't get heard today in our culture is because we don't show up to have these conversations openly. And so I think this is a great opportunity to not only show up in numbers, but to show up in heart and spirit and say, here's our story. Here's what we're going through. Here are the things that we're going through.
Right.
And thereby pushing that narrative kind of into some collective light to say, you know, yeah, we're not all asses. I mean, you know, we do have a story and we do have a journey and it deserves to be heard. And I think this is a perfect opportunity for our narrative to be heard in terms of conversation and just discussion, even amongst each other, to say, wow, I went through that too.
Well, my hope is, you're spot on, and I appreciate that tee up. I didn't even pay you for that. My hope is it just, right, I should. Once I get paid, I'll pay you.
Okay.
So, you know, my hope is it inspires people to talk to somebody. That's all it is. Like, I'm not expecting you all to show up and have this kumbaya moment and pour your feelings out. That is not what this kind of event is. It's just to show up and listen to some guys that are willing to share their story, that have maybe are further down the path of somewhere you've been or are, really just to inspire you to say, hey, I'm not alone. If we can inspire people to realize that they're not alone and there is a place to get connected, like, I will feel A+ about it. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm honored. I've been doing for the last 4 or 5 years doing work with suicide prevention, and you're absolutely right. The demographic of the highest demographic of suicide is in this room right here.
Right.
And when suicide survivors, people who have attempted suicide, and almost to a person, when they ask them about the experience, they almost to a person will say they did not want to die, they just wanted the pain to go away.
Right.
So think about that. There's a lot of men out there in pain. And so
There are a lot of people in pain.
Absolutely.
You know, that's the reality.
Absolutely.
I mean, I come back to one of the things I've trademarked is everyone struggles with something. And as stupid as that sounds, it's like, how is this not taken? It wasn't taken. But the fact of the matter is everyone struggles with something.
Mhm.
You know, all of us. And it doesn't have to be depression or anxiety or suicidal ideation. It doesn't have
Sure.
to be any of that. We are struggling. You know, we live in a world that we are more connected than ever technologically, but there is no replacement for this. You cannot get this experience on your phone, on your computer, period. Even if you're Skyping with somebody, you just can't get that. So, you know, we were very intentional about how we wanted to build tribes, knowing that from doing that work, we would find broader tribes. So the work we're also focused on right now is with teens. And because, again, another very high-risk group that has a lot of issues. There's a lot of suicide specifically in the community we live in. So we're doing something a little different, which I think is going to play out really interestingly. So I've done a couple of roundtable discussions with youth lately, and I'll tell you, kids today blow my mind. The things they will tell you, they're going to fix mental health and how we talk about it. I don't want to talk about mental health because there's not a statistic that proves we've made any difference. I want to talk about the conversation before we get to mental health. But these kids will talk about their feelings, they'll tell you about what they're struggling with, they will flat out tell you what they want to talk about. So we've built an entire campaign around working with youth, but we're going to do something different. We're going to tell that story in a roundtable podcast setting, but we're also going to talk about the same topic with their parents. Because what we hear a lot is my parents don't know this, or my parents don't do this, or they don't do that, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, let's just tell the whole circle. So that's what we're focused on. We've also done a lot of work to tee up a series that we're doing with emergency responders. We have a series that we're going to do with vets, because again, another group in crisis. Moms are a really underserved group, so we've done some work with moms. So again, there's no shortage of tribes. I'm sure you all have interesting individual stories. If you have a story that you think is compelling and you want to share, let's talk, because my tagline for this work is real people, real life together. And you know, we can go to events that have fancy people that come in that have all these letters after their names or have name recognition. That to me is great and it's cool for the wow factor, but at the end of the day, it's not relatable to most people. Like, I want to go and see somebody that's been where I'm standing or comes from where I come, that's sharing their story that may be further down the path. So that's the work we're focused on doing. I'll get off my soapbox. I'm so grateful to be here, and I hope to see all of you in May. What is May?
It is, man.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Jason. Thank you,
Sure.
Brian.
And there's plenty of flyers here if you guys want to take some. Thank you.
Well, that date's on my calendar for sure. I'll be there.
Cool.
I'd like to give you brief cliff notes on who I am, why we're here, before I introduce our founder. My name is Jeff Ruiz. I'm a council member along with a few of us here in the room. And I'd like to tell you, my definition of what masculinity is has always been a little skewed, in my opinion. I grew up with a military father, a stay-at-home mother. I grew up in the 60s. It was a traditional family. Only my father worked. We were nurtured at home. I had a younger sister. This was my impression of how the world worked. I learned disciplinary attitudes through my father, and I learned nurturing through my mother. However, the idea of what I thought it was to be a man was copied from my father. Disciplined. Don't show your emotions. Always be in control. If you're not in control, always act like you're in control. The men know what they're doing. Take care of the women. Typical traditional role back in that decade. This affected me when I grew up, gentlemen. I got married at a very young age. I will spare you all of the details. I will talk about that at a future date. I was not ready to get married. I did it because I thought I had to. I felt compelled because I had to do the right thing, because this is what guys are supposed to do. And I felt if I didn't do it, I was worthless. So I did it. I had a very tumultuous marriage. However, from that marriage, I had 2 beautiful children. I'm very grateful for that. That first marriage ended in a divorce. I tried it again. I got married for the second time. Now I thought I could learn from my first experiences. I could learn where my mistakes were, and I fixed some of those mistakes. However, I still wasn't there yet. My second marriage did not last as long as my first marriage. It lasted maybe half as long. I made a lot of mistakes there too. Throughout this whole period, there were certain things that persisted and stayed the same. It was my attitude, my ego, my arrogance, my sense of machismo, that I knew everything because guys are supposed to know everything. That marriage ended too. Shortly after that, I encountered a significant life-changing event where I faced death. Literally, I came close to dying. And I'll tell you that an experience like that, which I hope does not have to happen to you to change where you are thinking, changed my mind, changed my life in a significant way, to the point where I had to ask myself, what am I doing? Everything I've tried has been a failure. I can't hold on to a marriage. I can't hold on to a relationship. What am I doing wrong? Coming close to death will get you in touch with your spirituality. It'll get you in touch with your God. It'll get you in touch with your friends and family in ways that you've never experienced before. Long story short, I started putting away those things that were holding me back. I put away negativity. I put away negative people. I started hanging around more positive people. I started hanging around positive energy. I became more spiritual. I got in touch with my masculinity. I was reintroduced to my masculinity. I redefined my masculinity. As a result, my social circles changed to the better. Folks, when that happens, better things start happening to you, because you're in a different energy. You're in a more positive energy. You're around people like yourselves, people who have a common goal into bettering themselves. This was what I needed. It ultimately led me to joining a speakers group, Toastmasters. In my club, I met J.B. Braden, who some of you know. I expressed to J.B. one day what I wanted to do to help other men that had gone through similar things as me. We had a couple of discussions on the fact that I don't want this to happen to so many people. I want men to realize that you don't have to have this tough image of yourself all the time to be successful. You don't have to go through being tough and macho, thinking you know everything, to be successful. He put me in touch with this wonderful gentleman back here, Mr. Brett Zachman, Zach. He and I met. We had a couple of meetings. We identified. We talked to each other. We had the same goals. We found out we were on the same page. And I said, I want to be part of your organization. I want to be part of Be Men. This was a little over a year ago, about a year and a half ago, and ever since then, we have started to regrow this, haven't we? And we're starting to make this bigger. This night here is a first step toward bringing everybody together, and we are going to grow this thing really big. At this moment, I'd like to go ahead and bring Zach up here and introduce the founder of Be Men. Come on up, Zach.
That's a good story. Thanks, guys. Well, we appreciate you being here tonight. You know, time is the one resource that you can't gain back, right? I actually, by day, work as a financial coach. So money you can spend, hell, money you can lose. We've all done that in the last 15, 18 years in America. But time is the thing that once you've spent it, you can't ever grab it back. So we're going to wrap up by 8 o'clock tonight. Now, at 8 o'clock, we're done. Now, if there's stragglers or if there's connections and there's, you know, men in the room that you haven't met before or men that you already know that you want to continue that conversation, you can. The whole point of right now is a little bit of an intro, and then we're going to go into an open group discussion. This is not open group therapy. So if any of you came tonight wondering, oh my God, am I going to open group therapy? Because I've never done therapy and I don't want to do therapy. That's not going to happen tonight. The intro part is really just to touch a little bit on my story, which was the catalyst for why would we even bring men together, and a little bit more about the organization. What is it about? But maybe even more importantly, what is it not about? So here's one thing it's not about. You're never going to walk into this room or any room. Beers, Bros, and Bucks, I think, is going to grow all across America. And you're never going to hop on our website, bemen.org, and write Micah, and then you're on there for about 9 seconds or 9 nanoseconds, and then boom, the pop-up screen comes up that Danny built that says, Micah, it's your lucky day. Did you want to be a gold, silver, platinum, or titanium member of our organization? Because Zach has an 18-and-a-half-year-old and a 17-year-old, and he's trying to figure out as a financial coach how the hell he's going to get him through college. And you're going to really help him out. Right? I'm a little idealistic, maybe a little naive, even though I work in the money industry. We're never going to charge men to become healthier men to build Be Men. There's grants. There's sponsorships, there's speaking engagements, there's workshops, there's individual coaching, right? There is so many different ways to create revenue streams for this organization, because here's what we don't want to do. We don't just want to help out this thin slice of men over here. There's a broad spectrum of men, right? Tens of millions of men. The story I'm going to tell you in a minute is the story of every man. It's not the story of one man. I used to think that. I was arrogant enough to think I was horribly unique. And then I got the smackdown that you're not unique at all, Zach. Not in any way, shape, or form. So what happened for me 15 years ago, now the other thing that won't happen is we're not going to solicit you. Not only are you not going to be solicited at the website or at the door, but when you walk in here, we're trying to build a container, right? A container of good, like-minded, extraordinary men. Not, hey, let me stab you with a business card, Scott, so I can sell you my service. That's somewhere else, right? That's a chamber of commerce, that's a meetup, that's not Be Men, okay? So 15 years ago, I go through separation and divorce, and I found out from my therapist friends now that I did 3 of the top 5 most stressful things to do simultaneously. Changed my living space, I bought the lie that I was the problem, so I moved out. And I kept the 2 dogs and the 2 kids and the 2 cars and the corner house and the spouse all intact, right? Because can anybody relate to being a martyr? That's what it's called. That's what the divorce attorney who reviewed my divorce decree said. And she was kind of a gruff lady. And actually what she said, and we'll try and edit this for the Facebook Live, she said, do you enjoy getting effed? Because it looks like that on paper. Ooh, that was a burning moment. Yeah, right. So, I had no idea though, guys. I was a jock who got an economics degree. I had no passion for psychology, had never even heard of behavioral science. So I'm walking into the perfect storm, forgot to go to Walmart, buy a rain jacket, an umbrella, anything necessary. And how many of us feel like that when it comes to our lived experience? I'm actually at a point with men where I'm asking this question. I'm not going to be so bold as to suggest I know the answer, but what if ill health in men is the epicenter of societal trauma in our country? Because statistically, if you track back self-abuse, if you track back spousal abuse, and if you track back child abuse, you know where many times you're going to arrive? Us. So we can be as pissed off as we want that the pendulum of masculine and feminine, it was 2,000 years stuck in the masculine. We were one up, they were one down. That's just the way it worked. I mean, if you don't know it, don't trust me, go study the history books. And Now it's swung over here because we had 100 years of tenderizing our society with the feminist movement. Then we put it on steroids for the last 3 to 5 years because we introduced this thing called #MeToo. So now we have been faced with the mirror. Hey, you guys kind of suck. Now you're thinking, not me, but there's at least 1 or 2 or 10 or however many of us that have made the rest of us look bad. You have to face that mirror right straight up and then understand that it's a pendulum. So if it was stuck over here in our side, in our favor for 2,000 years, we're not that patient, right, gentlemen? It's okay that we're stuck a little bit on this side, and I've had conversations with men. I had a conversation with a 19-year-old. He said, Zach, they don't want equality, they want supremacy, right? Land of the Amazons. No, they don't. Because here's what's going to happen. The pendulum will swing back and forth, and then we'll settle on moderation. So why do I tell you that story? So I'm actually at the point where if we're middle-aged men, why do we think that any man in America would be healthy? I mean, if this is sort of like back to geometry, you know, you have your hypothesis and your given, and the given is that what everybody knows. Why would we think that the given is that men are healthy? Did anyone in here ever sign up for the Be a Man class? I must have missed that day in school, right? Middle school, high school, undergrad, graduate, PhD work. It's not offered anywhere. There is no Be a Man class. In fact, the documentary I watched about 2 months ago called The Mass We Live In, you know what I found out after 90 minutes? Of all these PhD, MDs, therapists, psychotherapists, plus the lived experience, Jason, talking about those vodcasts, teenagers in the San Quentin teenage program. That means a 17-year-old shot some other 17-year-old 6 times, and he's a lifer at 17. So they did the clerical clinical side, but they also did the real life street side. And here's what they define. There is no definition for masculinity. You know what masculinity is? It's an anti-definition. It's called whatever is feminine, be the opposite. If being feminine is emotional, don't have emotions. If being feminine is sensitive, don't you dare be sensitive, right? That is not a place to arrive at. That's a non-place. So no wonder men are wandering the streets going, I don't know who I am. So if they don't teach us in school, where would they teach us all how to be men? Life, trial and error, is a really painful way to learn. I can tell you more about my sob story of how I've been broken in just about every silo that you would think about as a man. Here's what I think. You learn at home. That is an awesome program if your dad should be nominated for Father of the Year or Nobel laureate, right? And how many of us, and we don't have to get into that because it's not group therapy tonight, but how many of us have a less than favorable story about that? My dad is my hero. He's 73 years old. When he was 43, he was an asshole. Sorry. He drank a pot of coffee to bring it up. He leveled it off with nicotine. We're German, so he had a beer and a shooter at the wet bar when he got home. He's a little hangry, and then he needed to eat. It's kind of how I am, right? Overworked, underpaid, stressed out, stretched to the max. Now he's a much calmer, zen-like, kind of like Master Natsky here in the back of the room, gentleman now. But that's because life broke him over time, right? So, and that's not even a horrible story, right? Jason's probably going to tell some of those stories. Dad, I don't want to talk about Dad. Because when he beat me senseless and almost killed Mom, we don't talk about Dad anymore. So it's generational modeling, right? Grandfather teaches father, teaches son, teaches grandson. So when do we want to stop the insanity? When do we want to grab the bull by the horns? Because here was my personal epiphany. I'm learning about Nonprofit 101 in the world that Jason lives in, some 10 years ago. Cause generates effect. Around effect is a negative symptom. Let's pick one. Homeless youth, battered women, people dying of cancer, world hunger. We have symptoms everywhere that are negative. We as Homo sapiens, human beings, we're kind of a compassionate lot. We don't, Jeff, we don't want you to suffer like that. So we build a nonprofit, philanthropic, and we pick a symptom that we don't like, probably touches our heartstrings, right? And then we build a service, and then I'm in finance, so what we got to do, Jameson, is we got to prove to you that if you give me $1 of your hard-earned money, I guarantee, no, I promise, no, I guarantee that 85 cents of your dollar will not go to my kids' college tuition. It will go to the delivery of this service to mitigate that symptom. Right. So here's how that works. That is very magnanimous of us as humanity. Here's the problem. That's a symptom. Did you ever think to track it back to the original root cause? If you treat symptoms, guess how long you'll treat symptoms? Infinitum. Forever. It's like the US Post Office. The mail never stops coming. So that's that idea about the epicenter being us, right? Track it back to the original root cause. But here's another issue about philanthropy in America. We kind of like to help the helpless. Well, who's the helpless? Women? Children? Men? Greg, you're a man. I mean, right now, the negativity about man, I joke, but I don't joke. Greg, ... you're a man, ... we're sorry. Really? Or, Greg, you're a man, figure it out. I mean, we just assume. I mean, he's a man, he'll figure it out. Oh, he killed himself? Why did he do that? Because you didn't help him. You didn't teach him in school, and his dad wasn't there, if he's a workaholic. Or worse than that, dad brutalized him. And that little Zach grew up to be a big Zach. And he brought all those problems with him, right? So we appreciate you guys coming in here tonight to kind of see what this is about. And we're in phase 2. You are actually a part of phase 2. Phase 1 of this organization was awareness. Well, like I said, the feminist movement, #MeToo, they did a lot of our work for us. Everybody's talking about masculinity. Have you noticed this? But they're talking about the labels. Healthy, toxic. Masculinity is. It's not good or evil, black or white. It just is. Then we get involved, and then we got to start labeling. So that was phase 1. Phase 2 is this. Let's build an army, right? There's a battle, but here's what's not intuitive. It's not a battle out there. I was an athlete growing up. I was losing the battle of life, the game of life, because everything was about the external, all the things I can't control. I can't control any of that. I can only control me. Activity and attitude. Hopefully, most days, try and manage myself. So, now what we're in is let's do a grassroots movement, bottom up, right? And let's build men. Each one teach one, and we could build Beers, Bros, Bucks here. We've done it at Colorado Springs. We're gonna launch in Greeley. I've got people in Scottsdale. I've got people in Virginia Beach. And then it's like franchising. And we could build chapters and clubs everywhere. And that's phase 2. And then phase 3, I kind of have a dream. So we're going to move forward into more of kind of a discussion about what's going on. Thanks for being here, Mike. You bet. I'm going to play you guys a quick little intro video, just kind of let you see my dream. And then we'll have a conversation. IT is not my language, guys, so if this takes more than 10 seconds, please be kind, gracious, and, all that good stuff.
Help is on the way.
Yeah, right?
Right.
Boy.
In the form of therapy, or?
Okay, more help is on the way.
Actually, I think we have this all teed up, so this should go pretty nicely. All right. Right when they say that, it sucks.
Good morning, everybody. This is Brett Zockman, SAC, founder of Be Men, and I'm coming to you this morning to talk about something epic. It's your life. Now, we've got a large-sized Be Men community growing. We've got 75% of that community are men. We've got 25% of that is women who are supporting our efforts. Wonderful women who've got our front, backs to the side. But guys, I want to speak into the hearts, minds, and souls of you this morning. I want to ask you a question. What are you prepared to do with the rest of the time that you have? See, I've seen the future. Now, I haven't seen your future. I know that's what you were hoping for. But I've seen my future. See, I had a number at the beginning, and then there's a number at the end. We've all got those. My number at the beginning was 1/1/1971. And at the end, I believe it's going to be 1/1/2071. And I've got 2 sons. They're 18 and 16 right now. They're great teenagers. And they're going to be standing, perhaps, maybe not in front of a camera like this, but they'll definitely be standing at a podium. And they're going to be addressing a congregation. Now, we all hope that it might be 2,000, or maybe it's 200, or maybe it's just 2 or 3 people. And they're going to have a couple of options. And option A is going to be something like this. They'll stand up to the mic and say, You know, our dad was a good dad. He paid all the bills on time. He took care of my brother and I. He worked really hard. And then he died. Gentlemen, there's nothing wrong with that story. Millions, tens of millions of men have come before us and lived that story. But there's a second option. And that option might look like this. They both stand up to the mic and they say this. You know, halfway through our dad's life, he dared to move. He met some men. He met a few other men. And a ragtag assembly of guys decided, damn it, we're going to do something different with our lives. They came together and they started building a concept called Be Men, about men serving men to build better men. Then it grew, and it grew, and sooner or later there was an army of servant warriors all across America. Before he died, they built the Be Men Institute. Now close your eyes for a minute and envision this. It's not a college, and it's not a church, but it is a place of knowledge and learning. It's where men come in, and you could have a bunch of men in a room studying the Bible. Right down the hall and to the right, you could have a bunch of men and they're studying the Quran. And out on the back lawn, you've got a Tai Chi class going on, while in the gym there's a climbing wall. You've got gentlemen learning how to rock climb. Up in the kitchen, there's a culinary arts class going, and down in our auditorium, there is a communications workshop about how to do a deep dive and become more intimate with your romantic partner. So open up your eyes now. Feel the vision. Just get a little ripple in the back of your neck, maybe a tingle in your skin. See, that's a great, wonderful story. And guess what? That lies deep down inside of each and every one of you. Your gold is not out there somewhere for you to discover externally. Your gold is deep down inside of you under layers of crap, and layers of failure, and layers of moments and opportunities missed. What I want to remind you is that each and every one of us are extraordinary. So let's go out there and let's be men.